the Arabs to go there. So this creator, so the Pope and the Christians, they wanted to do something. They have to do something to change the situation. And these Turks were fanatics in religion, They are fanatics, just like the extremists today, They are fanatics. They hated the pilgrims because they were Christians. They did not want their money. They finally said, we don't want your money. We will stop you. So they forbade Christians to visit holy places. They persecuted the pilgrims. Those who returned to Rome and West told the stories of persecution of the Turks, Just like after India's division, the Hindus returning from the Pakistan side, they were saying the stories of the atrocities committed. These Christians who went to Holy Land for pilgrimage, many of them were killed, and those who returned, they had a sad story to say. So Pope has to do something, when the people are saying all these things, and Pope, if only he says, okay, God bless you, his position will be, will be affected. So Gregory was gone, and now Pope Urban II was in power. This is 1088 to 1099. Urban came from a royal family. He was a big man. Unlike Gregory was a short man, thin man. But Urban was a, 6 feet 6 inch man with a heavy, big, from a royal family. He was a, he was a handsome man, very impressive, and he was a great orator. He was not a man to lead armies, but he was a psychologist. That was he was basically. Man, he could speak and get people excited. So this Pope Urban, he went around preaching. That's what he did. The emperor went around preaching. He wanted to excite the people so that the people will volunteer and make an army to march to the Holy Land to fight against the Turks. In 1095, Urban went to Clermont, France. There he spoke about the Holy Land and the Turks. He spoke to tens of thousands of people gathered there about Jesus, his birth, his baptism, his teaching, all these things. He talked about the arrest of Jesus, his crucifixion, death and burial, and then he said that all these places now in the hand of the Turks, they are desecrating these places and they are not respecting it and all that. Man, this is our life, and that we need to go and liberate this Palestine, poor people, of course, when a psychologist king exploits the feelings of people going to come. They came forward. People broke out. Even the emperor, his feelings broke out, and the people's feelings broke out for the sacred places of Jesus. He spoke against the Turks who desecrated the holy place. The crowd began to boil with anger. Mass hysteria. You know what mass hysteria means? He went and stirred the people to a stage of frenzy. He called them to go to the Holy Land and rescue Jerusalem. And the tomb of Jesus Christ must be captured from the hands of the, Turks. So, to all who would go, Pope also promised. Pope said that if you go, I will reduce considerably the purgatory for you. Man, that's enough for you, that? Yes. So those who are willing to go was to fight against the Turks. Whatever sin you have come, you have to be there for tens of thousands of years in the purgatory. I will reduce it to half. Oh, people were more than half. Man, you get benefited.
1 minute introduction on purgatory.
Purgatory means, the Roman Catholics believe that no person can go straight to heaven. Every believer on death will go to a place of it's called Shuddhikarana. It's a place where you will be purged of your sins. It is not hell, it's not a place necessarily of punishment, but it is, you are being boiled there to get rid of the dirt on your soul, on your soul. So that's what purgatory. So, you go there, you will be there, depends upon, some people have to be very long, and then, of course, Pope has made a provision for people to get out of it. That's very kind of him. Because some people had to be there for 10,000 years. Because their sins are very heinous sins, So Pope said that there are saints, you can buy the virtue of saints for money. Every person needs so much virtue to get to heaven. But some people have so much virtue, you get only 100 points, but some people have 10,000 points.
So, you can buy.
Oh yeah, that's what the arrangement. You can buy, the church will sell, only the Roman Catholic Church can sell it. So you can give money to the church and you can say that I need, I need to buy for $20,000. And people usually go and buy it for their parents, uncles and all that, Immediately after the parents die, they will go that, my father has done so many this and so he must be there. So can I buy for $20,000 worth of, this thing. So, they sell, Pope will sell. Okay. Yeah. It's not now happening. There are some stories behind it, Yeah. Papa cheat, you heard that, Yeah. You can buy it. It's a paper actually written. There are different denominations of paper. 100, 1,000, 10,000, 50,000, there's papers. Yeah, it's there. You go and pay the money and you buy it.
So do we have that now?
No, that Luther actually stopped it. Oh yes, that was one of the big issues of Luther, There was a man called Tetzel. Tetzel came to Germany, I'm going away. Tetzel came to Germany to sell these, they are called indulgences. These indulgences, Tetzel, because Michelangelo was, finishing the St. Peter's Basilica in Rome. And, he was an artist. There tons and tons and tons of paints were required. So every day another 10 tons of paints, because he was painting the Sistine Chapel and all those things, it was money. Pope didn't have money. So finally Tetzel was very smart. Tetzel said, why don't I go, into Germany and other places, and I will sell these indulgences and bring money. So he went to Germany, and Luther was there, the pastor of the church there, the priest. And so Tetzel was preaching there and selling it. Your uncle's son, aunties and your parents and grandparents are suffering in the purgatory, and you are sleeping with your gold and silver and all. Give it away, buy these indulgences, and liberate their souls from purgatory. So people were coming, and so Luther stopped it. Luther said, on what basis? Show from the Bible. When Luther started challenging from the Bible, Tetzel, actually nobody began to buy, but except just few. But there was one man, he came forward. I don't know whether Luther arranged him or not. One man came to Tetzel and said, Father, can I buy for the sins that I am going to commit? Oh, Tetzel said, sure, you can. Then give me for 10,000. He gave. And in the night he stood somewhere after Tetzel selling, he was going, and this man has beaten Tetzel so bad. Then Tetzel cursed him, you will go to purgatory for eternal life. I already bought it. Yeah, the real happened. I said, I already bought it for. What do you do? So, finally they had to stop this business because it was becoming a mockery, You are forgiving the sins for. But the idea of buying the virtue of saints still there. It's not necessarily, the indulgence, sale of the indulgence is stopped, but the idea that you can avail the extra merit of saints. That's one of the reasons the Roman Catholic Church periodically will, declare so many people as saints. Because then those saints have extra merit, They are already in heaven, saints are. And all the extra merit they have, they can dispense it to somebody. The Roman Catholic Church has that benefit. But now, people don't believe anymore that they can do it. So there is no sale for money. But the idea is still there. So, the Pope Urban promised to everybody that those who are willing to go to the Holy Land to liberate it, I will reduce their time in the purgatory considerably. Depends upon. And then he said that those who die there, I will make a special dispensation there, their soul will immediately go straight into heaven. Man, going straight into heaven? Go and get killed in the Holy Land, your soul will straight go to heaven. And but so people were willing to die. Everybody wanted, hey, I want to go to heaven, man, I'm going to go. So they are ready to die because it's a matter of their hell and heaven, it's going to go. Whatever sin you have committed, special dispensation Pope made. Everybody who get killed in the crusade will go to heaven. You think the spiritual condition of the people at that time, and they could believe any nonsense. The Pope can say anything and people will take it. Yeah? And the Pope is a man who is, he has what they call the Tettavarundalai, the infallibility is there. So, Pope says Christ has to obey because he is the vicar of Jesus Christ on the earth. So that sort of. So, Urban, Pope Urban, he went around and, he also tried his best to raise people, and also the king also wanted. So it was a great time. They were having some fun. So he went on and stirred the people to a stage of frenzy. He called them to go to the Holy Land and rescue Jerusalem and the tomb of Jesus Christ from the hands of the Turks. To all who would go, Pope promised to reduce considerably the purgatory. To all those who die in the war against a Turk, immediate heaven without purgatory. The large multitude shouted, God wills it, God wills it. God wills it, that we should go and liberate the Holy Land. So Pope had red clothes cut into small stripes, which he stitched as crosses and gave it to everybody. A cross was fixed on the cloth, everybody. Yes, this is why it's a crusade, it's going there. And so, on the sleeve of every person, this cross was put. They would go to Holy Land and carry it. The undertaking was called a crusade because the Latin for cross was crux, C-R-U-X. So it's a crusade, it's basically crusade. The participants were called crusaders. The Muslims considered their wars as holy, for they were to advance Islam. Now the Western Crusaders also considered their war as holy war because they wanted to regain the Christian, the important places of Christianity. So both sides, consider. So what was the result of the Crusades? The first crusade got underway in 1096. They regained Jerusalem from the hands of the Turks. Yes. So Jerusalem, and they made it a kingdom, the kingdom of Jerusalem. They set up, and the military leaders ruled it. Yes, but soon these Europeans, they were the military leaders. These leaders were fighting each other in Jerusalem. And some groups were actually made treaties with the Turks to defeat the other group, because there were soldiers from people from Germany, there were people from Italy, there were people from France. And the Germans didn't want the French people to have the control. And the Italians didn't want that, either of them. So what they will do? The Italians will go to the Turks and say that you support me, we'll get rid of them. And the Turks are smart people, say sure. Just like the Britishers did, divided we fall, that sort of thing. Anyway, they liberated Jerusalem, and the kingdom of Jerusalem was set up. The first Crusaders' kingdom lasted for 88 years. Jerusalem was in the hand of Christians until 1187. But it was not a strong kingdom. Many of its people lived, peaceably with the Arabs. Many of its people, The second crusade in 1147 was to help the shaky kingdom of Jerusalem. The kingdom was becoming weak, because there was infight going on and the Arabs who were taking sides and all that. So they sent a lot of people for the second crusade, 1147. In 1187, the Sultan of Egypt, Saladin in Syria, captured Jerusalem. They captured back Jerusalem. 1187. The Sultan of Egypt, his name is Saladin. And he was a Sultan of Egypt and Syria. They captured Jerusalem. The third crusade was led by Richard I of England. He was the king of England. And Philip of France. And the emperor of Frederick of Barbarossa. So these three kings led it. It was a disaster. Because, the Emperor Frederick got drowned in the river. So he died. Philip returned to France, and Richard I got a treaty with the Saladin. And Christians could visit the sepulchre. That was a concession. So at least before that they could not go to the place, the burial of Jesus Christ, the sepulchre. Now with the Saladin, the Richard I made a treaty whereby, the control is completely in their hands, but this allowance, people can go silently and visit. There were 8 crusades. By the middle of 1200, crusades faded out. It was not until World War I the English took Palestine away from the Turks. So until 14 to 18, it was in the hands of the Turks. It was, history condemns Christians and Pope for the crusades. Children from 10 to 12 years were marching to Holy Land as part of the crusades. Just tens of thousands people were just marching. Little children, 10 years, 12 years or 30 years. They were all going and they were all got killed. Not one of them returned. Wonder whether their souls will be in heaven or hell. And Pope said he will make them there. It was ridiculous, it was foolishness, and these people were, innocent people. So the question is asked, what was the motive for crusades? What was the motive for it? Was it really because they loved the Holy Land, the sepulchre of Jesus Christ and all that? Or was there ultimate motive? So this question is, even to this day, you read church history books, everybody is, what was the motive? What was the motive? So that question is there. The Crusaders represented religious feelings both on the part of Pope and the people. They represented a perverted, unbiblical view of Christianity. Crusades basically show how ignorant the people were and how blindly they followed the leaders. We should admire the Crusaders for their zeal, but sympathize their ignorance. But actually, what Pope wanted that the whole Christian world should come under his control. Because if he liberate Holy Land, then he will come out as the savior of Christendom. That was his motive. It was not because the love for Holy Land or anything. It's a possession. Pope was very cunning. He thought through, now it is divided. To bring the East and the West together and all the people under his leadership, he has to do something dramatically big. Of course, the Turks were not allowing the Christians pilgrimage and all. That's all true. But where does in the Bible say you have to go on pilgrimage? Did Apostle Paul organize a pilgrimage from Ephesus and Philippi to Jerusalem? So where this God? The motivation behind the whole thing was that they wanted a complete control. Pope wanted to be the savior. Everybody looked to Pope and said, you saved our the Holy Land. You saved the sepulchre of Jesus Christ. You saved Gethsemane. You saved, that's a sort of. So Pope can now demand that get rid of the patriarchs, they haven't done anything. Get rid of them all. Come line up behind me. Only the Pope can save Christianity. But it didn't work out. It didn't work out. So actually the division between the East and the West was not healed. It only widened as the days went by. Pope was a failure. People begin to say that this Pope has killed tens of thousands of people, innocent children were taken to Palestine, and the Turks had no mercy. They killed every one of them. How can Pope now answer this? So that was a problem. But however, now we come to a period 1198 to 1216. That's a period when the church was in its greatest power, the Roman Catholic Church especially. 1198 to 1216. The struggle for supremacy did not end with Henry at Canossa. The following popes wanted to make sure kings and political rulers are subject to their supremacy. Emperor Henry, bowing before Gregory, the Pope was a symbol of papal supremacy, The artists have, they had photographed there those days. The artists have painted that picture, and you can find it in historical books and all, where this poor Henry, kissing the feet of the Pope, and the Pope standing with all the arenas, pomp and pleasure, and the crown are there, and the emperor, prostrating before him, and all that, pictures. So that was a symbol, and all popes thereafter wanted that to be the order. All the kings and emperors will come and fall down at their feet, that sort of thing. So they wanted that. The popes wanted that kind of a control. The church rose to the highest power under Pope Alexander in 1177. Alexander, the Emperor Frederick Barbarossa, came to the Pope under the porch of the Cathedral of St. Mark in Venice after a long fight with the Pope, and he bowed down before the Pope and kissed the Pope's feet. And Alexander made Frederick to rise and gave him the kiss of peace. The Emperor met the Pope after a few months and acknowledged, Alexander, the only Pope, denouncing the anti-Pope whom he had installed. This is it's a summary statement. All these kings will appoint their own Pope. If the normal Pope won't do what the kings wanted, he will go ahead and dispose him. Well, you are not a Pope. Make him the Pope. And then the Pope will bless the king, whatever he wanted to achieve. That's how Henry also did. Pulled out of the Roman Catholic Church, he wanted to get rid of his wife Mary because she was only giving birth to girls, So asked the Bishop of London, permit me to divorce Mary. And the Bishop said, no, you cannot. Because Mary was the sister of the emperor at that time, of Spain. So Pope knew that if he granted it, he will be in trouble. Said no. So Gregory said that I'm no more part of the Catholic Church, pulled out and ordained his own archbishop, and agreement that archbishop will give him the divorce. So he made him the archbishop. The archbishop gave him the divorce, and the Church of England came into existence. What a way to have a church. This sort of, it tells you the perversion, how perverted was, so perverted. So this sort of things were going on and on. So here, Pope Alexander and of course the Frederick, he came and he kissed the feet of Alexander, and Alexander gave him back the position of the emperor. And so this history repeated. So he was very happy because what happened at Canossa repeated here also. Exactly 100 years before, Frederick's grandfather, Henry, bowed to Pope Gregory. Now the grandson came and, and the same thing repeated. Alexander III in Venice, and, so the things repeated. Now there was a man called Innocent III. The church rose to her greatest height under this Pope. In the whole history, there was no other Pope greater than Innocent III. So this name was a great Pope, 1198 to 1216. He belonged to an outstanding Roman family. He had excellent education. He had his degree of law from the University of Bologna. He learned classical languages from Paris. At the age of 29, he was made a cardinal. And when 37, he was elected Pope in 1198. So you can just imagine that this man is very young. Only 37-year-old Pope. So he was from a royal family, he had the royal blood, he had education, he had understanding, and he was young, So under him, under Innocent III, the Roman Catholic Church, especially the papacy, it rose to the highest height. The most exalted idea of papacy came under. He wrote in a letter, the Lord gave to Peter the rule not only over the universal church but also over the whole world. That's what he said. In another sense, he said that, I am not only the ruler over the whole universal church, but I am also the ruler over the whole world. Whether the other kings like it or not. No king can rule rightly unless he devotedly serves the Pope, because Pope is Christ figure. So Innocent III was very powerful, very powerful. Actually, there was nobody to oppose Innocent III. No king, no emperor could oppose it. Innocent was very powerful, very powerful. He had the allegiance of all the princes and all the dukes and all the bishops and everywhere. He was a sovereign. He was a sovereign, and he did it. There were 5 factors in favor of Innocent. Number 1, the example of Gregory. Gregory falling at the feet of Henry falling at the feet of Gregory. The second is the donation of Constantine. We talked about it. They had a false, made a false record saying that the Peter was given the sovereign, rule over the Roman Catholic Church. So that record. Then the Crusades. Though the Crusades, a lot of people died, yet the fact that made an attempt and liberated Jerusalem at least for 88 years. So people appreciated, except those who lost their children and others. Then there is a doctrine called ration peccati, R-A-T-I-O-N-E, ratione peccati. The Latin phrase means by reason of sin, by reason of sin. What it means to say is that, emperors and kings are supreme political leaders, but they are engaged often in war, killing people, and moral sins. They have concubines and this and that. So Pope is the only one who could interfere and, either forgive their sins or depose them. So this provision, because of sin, by reason of sin, if the Pope finds that certain emperor is doing too much sin, he can just come and say, you are deposed. You are no more. You have done too much sin. You cannot be there. So this exceptional power in the hand of the Pope, he can get rid of anybody, say that you have done this and just write down, you are guilty of this, number 1, number 2, number 3, 15, 20 sins, you are disposed. That's it. And everybody has to respect it, because only a moral king can be in power. An immoral king cannot be in power. So we can always find out, there was no king who was morally right and there was no Pope who was morally right. But then king didn't have the right to dispose the Pope if he commits sin. The Pope simply has to confess it to another cardinal. That's all. That forgiveness will be there. The fifth factor, the favorable political situation in Europe, because the political scenario in Europe was favorable for the Pope. North Italian towns are very rich and they supported the Pope. So Italian towns are very rich and all the princes supported the Pope, so he get plenty of money. Then Frederick died, his 3-year-old grandson became the emperor. you know. So he was no challenge, you know. The little boy, his mother was ruling, she was a very weak person. So basically speaking, the emperor did not rule, the Pope ruled. The Pope ruled.